Let's kick off this panel. How you doing? My name is Grim. I'm going to be doing hosts, and I'm going to be asking our fantastic game designers here a couple of questions and facilitating a really fun conversation where we're going to all learn a lot about game module design. I reckon it's going to be pretty educational and fun.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Fun vocational.
Right, exactly.
I'm coining that term. That's my word.
Right.
I'm going to get my panel members here to introduce themselves really quickly. Lawrence, would you mind starting us off?
Not at all. Can you hear me properly? Is this working? All right, good. Because I'm having a little voice trouble, so I apologize in advance. My name's Lawrence Schick. I'm a longtime RPG and game writer. I started playing Dungeons and Dragons 50.5 years ago. And then a few years after that became a professional designer and have been working in RPGs, both tabletop and video games ever since.
And we actually have a talk tomorrow with Lawrence about Baldur's Gate 3, if anyone's interested in that. Next is our fantastic Douglas. Douglas, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi, I'm Doug Kaufman. I'm also a longtime game designer. Not quite as long as Lawrence, but almost.
And theme as we go down.
Exactly. And back in the day, I wrote RPG adventures for West End games for various systems that they had, and a little freelance work on the side. Haven't done a lot of RPG work since then, except personally, but I have some background.
Fantastic. Getting younger.
Yeah. That's the first time I've been accused of that.
Emmet, would you please take it over?
Yes, my name is Emmet Byrne. I'm the founder of Old Oak Games. We're currently working on a Irish-inspired dark fantasy setting for 5e, which is coming to Kickstarter in 2 weeks, so if anyone wants back, go for it. In the past, I was creative director of Cubicle 7. I designed Age of Sigmar Soulbound. I worked on Imperium Maledictum, the 40k one, Warhammer Fantasy, Lord of the Rings, all that kind of stuff. So, my game design career started actually with Baldur's Gate 1, where I reverse engineered the AD&D rules to pen and paper because we didn't have a nerd shop nearby us. And it was back in the day of booklets. You're all probably too young to remember. You actually used to get game books, which are games. But yeah, that's me.
I've actually got Maledictum from you last year, and I haven't tricked anyone to play it yet.
Really?
I'm really trying to.
Okay.
It looks
It's
pretty
brutal.
good. Last, we have our freshest game developers, and I actually think this is incredibly cool. Alex and Evie, could you guys tell us a bit about yourselves?
I'm Alex, and we're both in TY now, and we decided to try and make our own mini TTRPG for our mini company.
In school, so we sold a few sample sheets in school, and we have a few of them downstairs actually, just like we're giving them out, not paying anything. I don't think it's worth it right now. It's in our prototype stage, so we're just working on improving it so that next year we can sell a fully fledged TTRPG.
Fantastic.
Awesome. We call that early access.
You're charging for that's the open beta.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Right. Well, with our amazing panel introduced, let's kick off the conversation and ask a couple of questions. I was thinking, and normally these sort of things sort of pop up during a conversation, but maybe we could start with it. You get lots of these things like the rule of three, the three pillars, the three bears. That one counts. Mm-hmm. Do we have any little rules of thumb that you guys use? Maybe we'll come up with our own. We might need more than three. But Emmet, do you want to kick us off? So any rules of thumb you sort of live by in module design?
I mean, I think the earliest mistakes I used to make was I tried to account for everything players could possibly do. So the adventure ends up being like a book, like a massive, massive book. So I think for me, it's try and just have an internal logic and give the GM as many tools as possible. Maybe some of the wild edge cases, like, hey, if they decide to kill the quest giver, and I suppose try to think about it logically that, where the players are in their story. Are they going to accept this hook? Because I had that happen to me years ago playing an adventure, and someone came up and asked the party for help. No, sorry, we have to go save the world. We can't help you find your husband. I was like, that's fair. But actually, that led on to the climax of the campaign, so I had to rework. So I think it's just trying to build that internal logic in the adventure, but don't try to cover everything for the players because you just won't.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Doug, You were yelling pretty hard there. What do you think?
A rule of thumb, I think, would be people might be familiar with even is the diamond design, where you have a place to start and you know where you want to get to, and in between they can go this way or that way or this way or that way, but it's going to come to the middle. You need to gather them back in so you can kick off the next diamond, and it's an environment and they can go wherever they want, but it always wants to end up there. So you think of the adventure as being this kind of shape of two diamonds next to each other.
That's really good. Stealing that one. Lawrence?
What I always, the first thing I always try to keep in mind at the forefront when designing RPG scenarios is that your players and their game master, collectively, they're trying to have an exciting adventure that is as engaging and as compelling as they get from a book or movie. So books and movies are created by professional storytellers. And players and game masters are infrequently professional storytellers. So what you need to do is to realize that you're giving them the tools to tell a story in a semi-professional way, because they don't necessarily bring those to the table. They're bringing their talents to the table. They're bringing their enthusiasm, and if they have done any kind of storytelling analysis or whatever, they do bring that. But that doesn't mean they cover all the bases. So from the top down, I try to remember that you're creating a scenario that is a potential story that you're handing off to the players. And so for them to tell it to themselves, you've got to give them enough touchstones and rules and background and dramatic ideas that they can grab them as the story is evolving itself. And you can't give them everything. So you go for the things that are going to pay off the best, the things that are going to give the most dramatic moments. So always trying to keep in mind that you're doing this for the players. You're not telling your story. You're helping them tell their story.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things I do when I'm writing adventures, I often break things up into 3 parts just because that's how my brain works. But like at the end of part 1, I'll have, by this point, the party should have A, B, C, D, E. And then the GM can check that and go, oh, they haven't done these things. But then you can give them options like, if they haven't done this, then in the next part of the adventure, this can happen instead, just to kind of give the GM ways to pull it back around. And also, like, railroads get a bad name. But it's like everyone likes the ride if the view is nice. So like,
Yeah. That's a rule of thumb.
Yeah.
I'll write that down. Yeah. Alex and Evie, have you guys come up with anything as you're going through your process?
I guess one of the things I like the most about Dungeons & Dragons is just like having fun with your friends. So we tried to like keep like the playfulness in mind when we were making this. So creating systems where you could like tell jokes, like we have a table where you can roll for like an accessory, so you can have like a top hat, so if they want, the player could like draw this onto their character. So just like small things like that like add like charm. That's what we're trying to add to ours.
That's great. Yeah, charm, fun, and playful. I love it.
Just lost your mic. Sorry, don't understand. Sorry, this.
It's okay. I'll keep going. I'll keep vamping. Right. Oh God, where do we jump into? I need the audience's suggestion. Should we go into sort of background stuff around like inspiration and stuff, or should we get a bit more granular and do like puzzles and combat? What would you like to hear the conversation go towards? All right, hands up. Puzzles, combat. Okay, hands down. Hands up if you want to do like the inspiration and background development. Okay.
Good luck.
We could do both. I think there's people who are keen to hear a puzzle. So I find personally weaving a puzzle into a module can be tricky. It's like, okay, here we go, guys, and suddenly I dump a jigsaw out the table. So how do you incorporate puzzles into your stories and into your modules? May as well start at the end. Alex, have you got anything in your module puzzle wise?
Not in this module, but if I were running a game, I'd probably try hint at it like before in the same session to make and
Give
try
them lots of
hint, like
hints.
give them lots of hints, yeah.
Seems fair.
Yeah.
Cool. Emmet, you can add to that?
Yeah, I think for me it's don't lock everything behind a single roll, and then everything grinds to a halt. If they fail that check, you're like, well, okay, game's over. And then the other thing I like to do again, it kind of what in a lot of adventures, like give the permission to the GM to come up with a different solution. So I've had ones before where I did an adventure before where people had to pass through stones in a certain order based on a poem. And when we were playing at the table, the players thought of a sequence that would make sense based on their interpretation of the poem. And I was like, yeah, sure, that works instead. And just being able to say that to the GM was like, if they come up with a different way that makes logical sense, yeah, just let them do it. But I suppose there's also the difference between characters and players, and that's why you have, say, in D&D, you have investigation. Because if I want to play Sherlock Holmes, I'm not smart enough, but I do have 18 intelligence plus investigation, so I can give them those hints. And I think that's a way that D&D and a lot of other games do, where they give you an out to be able to give players a little bit of information that they might have missed as well.
Lawrence, do you have any thoughts on puzzles?
Emmet is exactly right. You have to keep in mind that players have different play styles. They come to play the game for different reasons, and they want to enjoy themselves in the way that gives them the greatest return on their time and effort. And not everybody comes to the game to play a puzzle. Some puzzles, so if you're designing something that is going to, if you're doing something for your team, your campaign, your group, you know what they like, probably after a few sessions. And so you can tailor puzzles to that. But if you're doing something for a wider publication or distribution, you have to keep in mind that some people come up to a puzzle and stop dead, right? So as Emmet said, you give alternative ways to progress in every area of the scenario. So if one of the best things you can do with a puzzle that can just that people may not want to solve intellectually is just let them break it. Give them some way to advance by hitting it with a big hammer, and that's going to be very satisfying for some players, and others will prefer to noodle over the puzzle until they work out all of its little details. So.
It seems like it'll be really fun for the barbarian character who's been sitting out for the whole session. But when he gets to that third mosaic tile, he just starts smashing it.
Well, don't punish players for being clever as well. If you come to a mosaic walls, you have to arrange them in a certain way, or it's a stone lock with all these intricacies, and someone casts, I cast stone to mud or whatever the spell is, and the wall just disappears. That's a clever way of getting past it. You don't want to be it's impervious to magic. You can't, because I spent ages working on this puzzle.
Exactly.
Which is I've been there. Yeah.
Douglas?
Yeah, I actually don't like having puzzles in adventures. I just don't have them. Except it doesn't keep me from putting them in. I just don't like having them. But I find if the easier you think it is, the harder it will be for the players. And the harder you think it is, the easier it will be for the players. I've had a puzzle, actually it wasn't even one I wrote, that was designed to be based on skill rolls and things. You give the players the information, but you don't assume the players are going to actually be able to do this. It's the characters who are going to be able to do it. Players instantly came to the right conclusion, didn't even bother cross-checking with their skills and rolls. They just went on that assumption. And then there was the time where I made a puzzle that I thought was, it might be a little too easy, probably best to err on that side. And they spent the entire rest of the session trying to figure it out and never arrived at the right conclusion. So I would think that if I were going to do, an adventure now, for instance, that a puzzle would be good for getting people to kind of spend some thought time, but it should really just be no harder than a roll that they would make for some other thing. You really, said, relying on players to be as smart as Sherlock Holmes, it can't be satisfying. If you have to keep feeding them clues, you might as well not have spent all that time on the puzzle. So something simple, that's where I would stick with.
Yeah, the puzzles are usually for the players, not the characters, a lot of the time.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting distinction between the players and the characters.
I think that also goes for murder mystery stuff. because the murder, it's basically a puzzle. Like, and again, we're not Sherlock Holmes.
Exactly,
Like,
yeah.
Don't be like, oh well, you missed the clue about you didn't find the murder weapon. It's like the murder weapon is embedded in their chest, and now you have your first lead.
Yeah. We tried to run a Doctor Who adventure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's hard because nobody's as smart as Doctor Who, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I'm going to go a different tact here because, Lawrence, you seemed interested in the inspiration side of the questions.
So was half the audience.
20%.
All right.
So I gotta know. Here's a question. What's the weirdest source of inspiration you've drawn from?
Okay.
I can't wait to see what Doug says. Brilliant.
Okay, so you create adventures in advance, right? And you put them out there for your players, and then your players do stuff that is entirely at right angles to what you had in mind. So the weirdest place for inspiration is the players themselves and their choices. You must incorporate them. You must incorporate them. They chose to do that, so the consequences are on them, but, and they should be appropriate for their choices. But, the story's going where they're going to take it. So, be alert to what your players care about and follow up on that, no matter how perverse it is.
That was real sting in the tail there, wasn't it?
Made the MC snort. You get the
Stuff's about to get weird.
I will. They're transition year students, okay? The three of you need to behave yourselves. Douglas, I have to know why your wife was laughing.
Well, I want to know too, because the things I can think of, I wouldn't think would. I think she was waiting for Lawrence's weirdest inspiration. But two that I can think of. One was writing an adventure we needed for the Tord game system that West End did decades ago, and we had a piece of art. It was just the cover art. This will be the cover art for this adventure, and it was a woman pressed up against. She was wearing a wetsuit and pressed up against a wall, looking around a corner, and we wrote the whole adventure based off of that. And then for my own personal inventions of adventures when we run our D&D campaigns and so forth, I think it was when I read somebody saying, hey, did you know that if you pronounce words like icicle in the Greek way, then you get Isocles and Monocles and things like that. And it's like, oh, a whole slew of villains named Monocles who can see really well. He's a whatever those one-eyed monsters are called. Cyclops, thank you. And Isocles is obviously freezing thing. That's great. And the whole adventure based just off of that.
Nice.
I love the good pun. Yeah, absolutely. I think mine was, it was basically just what if Jaws but zombie. So it was it just started like a zombie shark is attacking these people. But then it ended up being this hag coven was actually keeping this ancient shark alive. It was just a bit sad. It kind of wanted to die and stuff. And a whole town spawned out. So it was at the time it was like zombie shark.
Yeah.
And I was like, that sounds great. And then it just became a bit sad.
I think they stole that from you and made Sharknado 7.
Yeah.
Alex, Evie, do you guys have any weird inspirations?
It's not really weird, but our TTRPG was inspired by Honey Heist and The Witch is Dead, if you've ever heard of them, so games like that. So we just wanted to keep it accessible to new players, but still fun and creative for others. I don't know if Alex had any other inspirations.
No, not really.
Excellent. I was thinking about your zombie shark there. And subverting themes, so you got the shark, but he's sad, and he's a zombie.
Sadly eating people.
I just want a carrot.
So subverting tropes is really, really good fun. But how do you do it? How do you end up with sad sharks?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things as well, a trope is only really a trope to people who've seen it before. So if you're playing with people who are new to D&D or tabletop RPGs, there's a lot of stuff they haven't seen. We're kind of older and jaded, haven't played for years, so there is trophy you're trying to subvert. But there's a bit of sometimes when you're subverting things, it can be feel a bit try-hardy. So tropes aren't too bad. They're kind of comfortable for people, and you can get a lot of fun with them. So
That's when they're vulnerable.
And what do you do to them when they're vulnerable?
Well, this gets back to the matter of genre, right? Which is what kind of a game you're playing. Players bring their expectations of genre to the table. They think they know what kind of game they're playing. You're playing a Western, or you're playing an espionage game, or you're playing a high fantasy game, or whatever. And you have to deliver on that, right? You have to make them feel like they're going to have the kind of fun they were expecting to have. So the first thing you do is you make sure that you check off the tropes. The stuff that they're expecting, it's got to be in there in at least a sufficient quantity to make them feel like they're comfortable in this world that they're having adventures in. That after they're comfortable, that's when you start turning them over. And you just selectively, not like wholesale, right? Because that would just be ruinous. But you pick one thing that you can see that they're really bought into, and then you twist that, and you turn it around and you make it backwards, and then your shark is a zombie. So, that's what you do with. That's when you do the flip. Is after everybody's
false sense of security.
After everybody's fully comfortable, then you pull the rug out from under them.
Douglas, you're nodding like a very wise sage.
Well, it's more like pondering. I spent a lot of my career subverting tropes because I was the line editor for the Paranoia role-playing game. and that all that is one giant subversion of trope. If you haven't played it, you should find a copy and take a look. But I'm trying to think of how we came by the madness of a game that is entirely about subverting tropes. It started with a large trope, the computer that controls society, but what if the computer's completely insane and does insane things? And from there, you just basically have, you could imagine a deck of cards with every trope on it, and you just draw two of them and put them together and do something like that.
Mix and match.
Yeah, part of it is the knowledge of the original trope and how they weirdly combine. And I guess one way to look at it is, again, player versus character. If the characters are used to X, like they're cowboys in the Wild West, but if you come across technology, you don't want to describe it to them as a sewing machine because they've never seen that, but the players have. So instead, it's this thing with whirling circles, and it goes up and down, and it makes clothes, and the players will finally tumble to what you get. But in the meantime, they're in character trying to figure out what the heck you're talking about. So that might be one way to combine tropes in a genre game.
Cool. Alex, you guys obviously are pretty new, so have you built up any tropes? Are you thinking about that? How's that working out for you guys?
Well, okay. I kind of have one thing, but so when introducing my parents to Dungeons and Dragons, in their heads, because of things they see on TV, like Stranger Things and stuff like that, they think it's just fighting monsters and going on adventures, and it's a big part of it is that, but also you can have murder mysteries and things like that. So when I first introduced my parents to it, I was like, okay, here's a monster going out on an adventure or whatever. And then my parents didn't like that, but now I'm thinking of introducing them to it by a murder mystery or something like that, something that more grab their attention. So with different tropes,
Good
more
idea.
different players, different things. I don't know.
That's a really good idea.
Take them to the tavern.
I had my parents do an anthropological visit to an orc tribe over COVID. They learned how to wah. They were good at it too. Sorry, get distracted. Where's my notes? So we're talking about tropes, and that makes me think of themes. And do you guys steer away from heavy themes like morality and sacrifice, or do you lean into them? How do you work that into a story? Douglas, you're really getting yourself in trouble with the head nod.
Oh, sorry.
Because you're just
Stop agreeing.
you just look so wise.
What a terrible question. I go first and then I'm out of the way. Yeah, actually, I found to my surprise that almost everything I've written, adventures and even just short stories for RPGs, have somehow blended in the theme of sacrifice. It just seems to be something that I'm interested in. I think if you have it in your own soul than by putting it on the adventure or the paper, that you get more resonance from it for everybody. It's tough because sacrifice in particular in an RPG means some character, some player is going to have to lose something or their life or whatever. But they're the noble moments, and players don't often get a chance to do that. So I just was nodding because I'm like, oh yeah, I noticed that sacrifice seems to be the big theme. And
So if you get killed in one of your games, it's probably a good
it's
thing.
a
Means
good
you're the
thing.
nice guy at the
Exactly
table.
right, and probably also tainted by paranoia because you get 6 lives. So.
I'm actually similar enough that a lot of the games I've designed have had like a heroic sacrifice mechanic, because like everyone wants the Gandalf fly you fool, the Boromir riddle with arrows thing, and I like to like mechanize that a bit. So it's like you're making a last stand, you're going to die at the end of this turn, but in this turn you do like double damage, no one can hurt you, like all this kind of, you get to have your amazing going out in a blaze of glory kind of thing. But yeah, I think for me it depends on the type of game. So I worked across like the Warhammer spectrum, which is actually surprisingly big. So Age of Sigmar is very much heroic, mythological demigods. Like I put it like, if you're playing the RPG, it's like starting D&D level 5 to 10. And that's very much about heroic sacrifice and fighting back to sword. And you're like a big damn hero. But then if you're writing for Warhammer Fantasy, it's grimdark, but also with like this black humor. And then if you're doing it for 40K, it's like insufferably dark. Everything is terrible, and that's it. and that's just it. Then you die. Then you become food, basically.
For the zombie shark.
Yeah, and then if you're writing for Doctor Who, it's obviously very different as well. You know, it's much more lighthearted. So I think it does depend on what you're doing. I tend to lean towards either heroic and sacrifice, and also I found often like power corrupts has always come up when I've done campaigns and things. Yeah.
Alex, you nodded as well. Nodding is dangerous.
It's
What
not
have you
really,
got for me?
not really in this game, but when I'm trying to make a one-shot campaign, I also do like power corrupts. Like usually the main enemy is someone in a high position of power. So like I like doing that sort of theme as well.
Yeah.
Lawrence?
What players do at the table mostly is tell jokes to each other. Okay. But what players remember is meaningful thematic scenes that had an emotional punch. So the meaningful themes need to be woven into whatever genre of game you're presenting, and the players will pick them up or they won't, depending upon their interest and their personalities. And but that when they pick them up, you follow through on it, and you give them the opportunity for it to evolve into a memorable scene, something with an emotional punch to it. Because when the players at that table, meet each other again 3-4 years later somewhere, that's what they're going to talk about. They're not going to talk about the jokes, even though 90% of the time, you're laughing and being funny. It's the thing that makes RPGs so powerful is that instead of the meaningful events, emotional climaxes happening to a character that somebody else wrote about, they're happening to you. So that's why you need the themes.
We all seem to really like heroic, sacrificey themes. So I'm going to give you guys a chance to sacrifice yourselves now.
Sweet.
Characters. We like it.
Here we go.
Characters.
I'm not even going to look to see if anyone's nodding. What's an idea that you tried that really, really, really flopped? And what did you learn from it? I'm not looking at nodding. You guys are building a game right now. So, have you had any missteps? Have you had any things that haven't worked out for you?
Yeah, there were some things we tried to make like a proper combat system, but we weren't able to agree on like what to do with it. So we haven't got like a proper one for that. So that kind of flopped for us.
Okay. So trying to find agreement within the group is
I think
is a
that's
hard
one
thing
big
to
thing.
do.
Arguments.
No doubt. So what have you learned? How are you going to try smooth over those problems moving forward?
To listen fully to each other when we say things, instead of being one-minded about things. Like, this is the best way of working, instead of like thinking about, okay, maybe I think this is the best way, but what could be the best way for other people playing the game? Maybe they wouldn't like my way. Maybe Alex's way is better for more people, mine's better for a small niche set of people, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had that when I was designing in Souldown, the Heroic Sacrifice, Last Stand, it was called. First time we play tested, someone was like, I'm going to do a Last Stand. And they were all geared up for it, and they did no damage or anything, and then they just died. So I was like, okay, back to the drawing board on that one. And then another time I was playing a campaign and had the big bad built up to do their, haha, here I am to taunt you, and then you can fight me in 10 levels, and they killed him. Yeah. It's like, all right, well, there goes that campaign.
Throwing Strat off the cliff.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah. Douglas?
Well, I mean, there's plenty of things that have failed, but specifically to TTRPG adventure design, kind of related back to the themes, we put into the Torg role-playing game this deck of cards that was basically just an action deck, and it made things happen turn by turn. But embedded in that deck were themes. There was the romance theme card and the sacrifice theme card. And the idea was that the GM would create beforehand, if there's going to be that theme in this adventure, when it comes up, whoever was the one that drew that is now embroiled in the romantic entanglements that you have developed here. And so the NPC that they were going to fall in love with would fall whoever it was that drew the romance card. And we imagined in our heads, this would be awesome, that it would be all ways to weave these side stories into characters, just sort of story about themselves that didn't necessarily have to do anything with the adventure that you were in. It just didn't really work. Players were very reluctant to take on the themes. And the rule, I think, was that you could either take it and get some points for taking the theme, or you could turn that card in for something quick and small. People would almost always turn it in for quick and small because they didn't know how it would develop. It actually made them a little afraid of what was going to happen, even though they weren't negative themes, most of them. So I would call that a great idea and probably developable, but it just didn't work out the way we had hoped.
Cool. Lawrence, anything stick out to you? Any lessons learned?
Yeah, let's go way back.
Ooh.
Back in the late 1970s, when the company at that time that was publishing Dungeons & Dragons was called TSR. And they were looking for the first time to expand and have an actual sort of in-house staff, rather than just stuff that was thrown over the transom to Gary Gygax by his cronies. So they advertised that they were going to hire a game designer and send them a sample dungeon. So I said to myself, I'm going to get this job. So I had been running D&D, for 4 or 5 years at that point. So I just went through and pulled out a whole bunch of what I thought were the cleverest ideas that showed what kinds of things I could design, and cobbled them all together with, essentially really not much connection between them into what the kind of thing that came to be called a funhouse dungeon. I sent it in as, this was my tryout, this is my audition. And they said, okay, wow, okay, we really like this. We're going to hire you, and we're going to publish this, and we're not going to change a word. I was like, well, that's flattering. So I guess I'm not going to say anything about that. But so then they published it. It was called White Plume Mountain, and it was
Great adventure.
and everybody thought it was a great adventure, and I did not. Because it was just a bunch of cool ideas thrown together. It was clever, but it wasn't good storytelling. So what that taught me was, don't do that.
Tell a story.
Yeah, tell a goddamn story. Have some characters in there, for God's sake, instead of just monsters.
Like for a decade, White Plume Mountain was the icon of adventure development.
But it's like those funhouse dungeons, it's like, don't think too hard about them. Like, why did this get in here? Like, who put this here and why? And like in Tube of Annihilation, they tried to make it that Serac thing. Like, he did, he's a kooky guy. Yeah.
Whenever I remake those things, I always make them a dungeon, a jail cell. That's why there's a thing in there.
Okay.
But it's like ancient and old. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. That's a really cool story. Thank you for that. I didn't know of that at all. Totally distracted by that. Apologies. Let's do the combat. I promised them the combat. They love the old combat. You were talking earlier, Lawrence, about sort of kind of making a toolkit for the DM when you're making these modules. So how do you prepare a DM to have an exciting and engaging combat encounter? What tools do you give them?
Okay, so once again, it goes back to genre, right? So I'm a big fan of swashbuckling genre. So and I've run a lot of swashbuckling tabletop games, adventures in different systems. And you can, in every system, they've all got their own combat systems and stuff, but you can always adapt them to the approach that you want to get out of, say, a swashbuckling adventure, which has to have, a really big knockdown, drag-out fight in a two-story tavern. So you've got to, you have to give the GM a environment in which that kind of fun can happen. So you have to seed the environment with the kinds of opportunities for acrobatics and for flourishes and for dramatic reversals that are fundamental to a swashbuckling adventure. That means thinking about lots of set piece, furniture and things that can flip and go boom and roll and drop and open so you're once again an RPG scenario is a potential story that you're giving people to play, and so even in combat, you have to look at what kind of combat effect is supposed to be. What kind of fun are they supposed to be having in this kind of combat? And then you have to set up the location and the objects that are in it and the payoffs that can come from that, so that the GMs and the players have something to grab onto, and they're going to look at that and say, "Oh, I know what to do with that. I know how these things go together." And then they have the kind of fun they expect to have, but they wouldn't have known necessarily how to do that themselves.
Yeah, I think when you're doing that stuff as well, I found, like particularly if it's something like D&D, but pretty much any system, like if you're trying to encourage people to do the cool thing, like swing from a chandelier or flip over a table or throw someone through a window, it has to it be more optimal than just hitting someone with a sword. Like it's like, okay, a sword does D8 damage. Okay, well you swing from a chandelier, kick a guy off a table, it does D12 damage. Or something. Like it's something as stupid as that, like the mechanical feedback. Because otherwise, players will just try and do the optimal thing. Most players will just try and do the optimal thing all the time. So if you give them cool things in the environment, it's like, hey, if you interact with these things and come up with cool ideas, it's going to be worth more to you. Like the person gets knocked prone, or they're knocked out of the fight completely, or whatever. I think that's one of the big things to try and get players to engage with that stuff as well.
At the end of the table, Alex, what do you think?
It's like the best way to do is probably incentivize, what he said, give the players more advantages by doing more imaginative things instead of just saying, "Oh, I'm just going to hit them with my sword" instead.
Douglas, wrap us up there.
Well, interesting, just sort of an anecdote that supports what's being said. One of the most memorable fights, just from an adventure that I was running, not even that I had written, was from a system called Victoriana.
Oh my God.
I have and they have new editions, but it was an earlier digit. Okay, well, let me tell you. It was the memorable fight. I have no recollection of what the mechanics of the game were. I don't remember exactly what we were doing or rolling or how it worked. I don't remember. All I remember is the cowboy swinging with his whip from one train car to the other while they're fighting atop the train, and the rocket-powered steam engine person charging and knocking people off the train, and the lady assassin with her little parasol and big skirt throwing daggers and knocking people off the train. And it was the setting and the environment and to some extent the genre. Mechanics meant nothing. I really don't remember how it even worked.
Yeah, they changed systems a few times.
I know, I've seen the new one.
The new one's like a 5e one, which actually going back to some of the event, like mysteries and stuff like that, they have a cool mechanic in that called like an aha moment, which is like you either spend inspiration or when you go for a rest,
Right.
the GM can be like, you missed this clue. Someone comes here like, here's the clue.
Right.
If you're stuck or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of such a...
So I've seen the new edition. I haven't even had a chance to play it, but that was memorable in combat not because of mechanics at all. Then I just have two little mechanical things. If you're running D&D 5e, remember the action economy, because one big dragon that you think will take out 5 guys, not even a chance. Like you were saying, 5 things to one thing, even if the one thing is really big, and the silence spell. And then the other is that for myself, when I'm running some of these up against enemy wizards and things, and so this is something I want to provide to players if I'm going to write an adventure, there's a lot of tools that the GM has, but they're reading this like, oh, he has these 12 spells. And it's like, what the heck? What am I going to do? I try to put a little tactics sheet in there. First, they will do these to defend themselves. Then they'll use this once per battle thing that will wipe everybody out. But that this one will trigger only when 2 players are near each other that they can get with their AoE and so forth. Just a little cheat sheet to say, oh, what's this guy going to do now? Ah, here I am. Check.
Yeah.
Do that. Goes faster, more strategic, and actually they behave, not at the spur of the moment, but more with like they are characters who existed before and thought about what they were going to do when they fought, not just like a list of things.
Yeah, there's 2 things. I can't remember who I was talking to last night, but basically saying when you're doing like a big boss, give them 2 initiatives. Like I know like D&D has legendary actions, but like give them 2 initiatives, they act twice, and there's also like the D&D 2024 has Bloodied, which can be like a multi-phase boss fight, which is really, really cool. But just on like a bugbear of mine, not the actual monster. If you're doing game design, do not use keywords. Keywords are really easy for the designer, and they are awful at the table. I remember I ran Warhammer Fantasy at a convention a few years back, and I was running a vampire, and I swear to God, it had 30 keywords.
Yeah.
And they were scattered throughout the book, the explanation of each of them. And I was so I just wrote down, I don't know, drinks blood, like steak will kill it. Like, so I just, like, I threw out all the keywords. It was like, keywords bad.
Right. I think, looking at the time, guys, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I might open up the floor. And I mean, this is the place I have to end my last question. In the end game, how do we design really satisfying conclusions? Who hasn't? Who do I feel mean towards? You've all been so lovely, it's hard to pick a victim.
Yeah.
Alex, have you got that factored into your story at the moment?
Not particularly, no. Don't think so.
We wanted, because it's like a TTRPG system. We have like small campaigns in it, but it's like for the DMs to build off of. So this is for beginning DMs. So we
you're
wanted
more
to
looking at the
start
start than
Yeah.
Well, tell us what.
Sorry,
How do you design a hook?
start with like a basic trope, and then we would like develop on it and
Just build off of it, really. Build off of like existing trope, because they're used often for a reason. Generally, they're enjoyable to play around with certain tropes, yeah.
Use it as a seed.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we started there. We've blossomed. Emmett,
Yeah,
give us a conclusion. How do we conclude things?
Yeah, it was interesting when we were designing like starter sets with that. It's like usually it's someone's first point entry into the game. So you want like a strong start and a strong end to it. So it's just make it as memorable as possible and try and have as many of those scenes in there that are fun as possible. A strong character that either the characters can love or hate can carry an adventure and leave them going, oh, remember that was great. We met Gimbledork, the goblin or whatever it is, or just those big memorable set pieces, like fighting on a train or whatever. When we were doing Soulbound, for anyone who knows Age of Sigmar, it's a starter adventure, but at the end of it, there's a chance you might fight a Lord of Change. Like, so people like see that and go, holy cow, and that's memorable because we had the art of it coming out of the gate and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, those just go all in on stuff like that. But I think it is, memorable villains, memorable characters within it, and then those set pieces are really, they'll kind of leave people wanting more. Douglas?
Well, I have to say that exciting conclusions are not my forte. Often things, I have a hard time deciding what the big finish should be, but it is the end of the diamond, right? It's the gathering point. It's tempting to always make it be a battle, and the ones that I have actually published have typically been that way. So it's going to happen. This battle is going to happen at the end of the time that you've allotted for the players to do their thing, and what they do during the adventure will alter the course of the battle. Will they gain the allies? Will they make bad enemies? Will they subvert and sabotage the attackers in some way before they get there? But then you have the battle, and they can feel satisfied because, not just because they're rolling a bunch of dice, but because when the big thing blows up, that was because they did that. They planted the bomb before you got there. Or when the cavalry comes over the hill, it's because they went and negotiated the treaty with them to come and rescue the battle coming. But it's also nice not to have a battle be your conclusion. One interesting thing about, I find, running adventures in general is that when you're ready for the exciting conclusion, you've also been running for 5 hours. And everybody's kind of ready to wrap things up. And it's tempting to stop a little ahead of time and then do the exciting conclusion the next day, except that then you lose the momentum. So I think the key is the interesting characters that are involved, because you can have a negotiation or a treaty signing or a mystery reveal of the murder without a battle. And those be exciting conclusions, but they come from the things that have come before. So the conclusion is really the bringing together of all the activities that they did before that. Sometimes, typically a battle, but not always.
Lawrence, any final thoughts on finals?
Yeah, so getting to a satisfying dramatic conclusion to a single session or a campaign or something like that, it's all about relationship building. You have to, it really has to matter that you took down your opponent in the end, or co-opted them and made them your pal. So you got to get to know them. So over the period of the story that you and your friends are telling, the game master has to find ways whereby the person that is going to be the final opponent has enough screen time, if you will, to build some back and forth between them and the players. They have to establish who they are. They have to establish why the players love or hate them, or both. Because otherwise they're just a collection of hit points, and it doesn't. You won't remember that final battle. So if you want to have a memorable final battle, you got to build up to it. You got to have a recurring character, ideally, even with some supporting characters to go with it, and that person has to have enough interaction with the players that they feel they get to know them, and they feel, in fact, that the basis of their interactions with this character is what's going to give them the opportunity to take them down. So, and you can't always plan all that stuff out. So you got to look for opportunities and take them up as they come along. Make shit up.
I really like that advice. Guys, does anyone have any questions? Show up a hand if you have a question for our wonderful panel. Oh, we got one. Wait. Is this working? Maybe. Who knows? Hello?
I can speak loudly. If everyone can hear me. So it's 1.5 questions. The half is just for Emmet. I didn't hear your Kickstarter's name.
Beyond the Woods, it's called. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
I have business cards. The game is also running at 2 today and tomorrow. I think there's some seats open. So.
Thank you. And the other question is, it's more mechanical, but how do you go about play testing your mechanics? Because I've playtested TTRPG Confluence, and it's very hard to take something that is very precious to someone and like have to say this works, this doesn't work, and suggest things. You obviously don't want to be like, it's awful, don't do it. But on the other side of that, how do you take criticism, or how do you plan playtesting and stuff like that?
Yeah, when I've done it in the past, it's usually when we do playtesting, it's not we're sitting down to play a game. It's we are testing this mechanic, so you're facilitating that being a part of the game. Like, I'm happy for people to say, this does not work, it's stupid. Like, what is wrong with you? But, you know, that's years of being told that. But I think it is, you have to, you get a lot of feedback, especially when you put stuff online, you know, when it goes out in a wider audience and everyone wants to design games or, you know, has their opinion. But a lot of the time it is, part of it's trusting your gut as well. Like if someone says, I don't think this is working, and you go, yeah, it's kind of, you know, because I've done that before, it's like, I wrote this mechanic, it's fine, you know, it'll do, and then people's like, it doesn't feel good. And you'll know, but then there's tons of people who will tell you, and you go, no, I actually think that just might be them. And as well, it comes back to the type of, say, game you're designing. You know, with Soulbound, when we did that, it was very much heroic fantasy. So like, we're trying, you want to feel like a hero. And the first few play sessions we did, people were just getting killed. Like, and it was okay, we accidentally made a grim and perilous Wolfrup or Warhammer Fantasy. So it kind of comes down to what you're trying to make as well, and make sure you're kind of staying true to that. So when we're doing Soulbound, I was like, this feels broken. I was like, yeah, it does. Just leave it, because that's the whole point. Except one point when we did actually break the game. We made a spell, like you spent an action and it gave you 2 actions, so you could just keep casting that. And we're like,
More wishes, Genie?
Yeah. My partner, she broke the game as well. She, like with an infinite murder bot that she made. But yeah, it is. You kind of plan out what you want to test. Like today we're testing magic. Today we're testing this thing. Today we're seeing how, you know, the social mechanics work and stuff like that. And then taking in feedback, it's write everything down. So you have to play yourself. Let people play without you around, and maybe get someone else to take notes, or you just get people to email notes in. Do you know? If you can be there, like playing the game yourself and running the game, and then at some point just not being there is really good as well. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's how I've gone about it in the past. Yeah.
I actually gave a talk about this last year, about that specific question. What I found to be really successful for me was watching a really good GM run the adventure I had written without playing, just there to take notes, and players who had never seen it playing, just take notes. And then I think, as Emmett pointed out, I didn't change a whole bunch of stuff, but I added texture wherever I could, because the GM was there improvising the parts that I had not provided him any information on. And because he was a good GM, his improvisations were 90% like, oh yeah, that's got to be in here. Sidebar, how do the seal men act? Sidebar, what do the bad guys really want that you could bribe them with? That kind of thing. So being not a part of the test is, I think, a pretty important step.
So go online and look up his talk from last year. I'm mainly a story and character designer, but I've done my share of systems design. And you can't get enough iteration. You have to get it from different kinds of players with different play styles. And by God, don't be too attached to your systems, because some of them are just not going to work. And you just can't say, oh, well, they just didn't get it. You know, no, throw it the hell out and go back to the drawing board.
You can also end up with like some, it's happened to me before, where we had a system, but parts of it didn't work, so we designed another system to make that bit work. And then that kept happening, and then we removed the first bit. So later on, we're like, why do we have these 5 systems? What do these even do?
Where'd they
and they're like,
come
oh, just delete all of this. And we don't actually need it anymore. So that can happen as well. So let's take a step back and reassess as well.
How's playtesting going for you guys?
Yeah, so like one piece of advice we would have like to fellow beginners, instead of like making everything precise, making sure it's perfect before you playtest it, like that's the whole point of playtesting. You don't need to make sure it's precise. Just jump straight into it and see what works, because otherwise you perfect something and then you realize you can't use that. Like that isn't going to work, and you have to get rid of it, and it's like heartbreaking to see it go, you know? So, yeah.
100%.
I think, guys, we have about time for one last question, if anyone has something. We've got about 5 minutes left on the clock. Oh, I see 3 hands. Where were your hands a minute ago? Let's jump over here.
Yeah. So I guess just a quick one for me would be, say, something that you've experienced either running your own game or being a member of your own game that you brought into something that you created, that you were happy to, like, I love this so much, I want to bring it into something I created. Or even for you guys, something that you're hoping to bring in.
One thing, I can't remember what game we played, it was a few years ago. I think one of our GMs found it online, but it was literally, and it's in a lot of games now, just connections, where it's me and blank went drinking one night, like that kind of thing. And I use that kind of thing in every game I'm playing, regardless of what system it is. And I try to facilitate that in games that I'm writing as well. Because those inter-party connections, that's like the heart of it, trying to, those campfire moments for people who are sitting around and talking, like that kind of stuff, trying to get as much of that as possible. And likewise with, like, I've always liked the between adventures part of games. So literally like, oh, well, I go off and I have a family and that kind of stuff, and then you get dragged back out. And so actually, rather than, because I remember we did Curse of Strahd and it took 2 years, but I was keeping a track of how many days it was in game, and it was like 2 weeks. Like, so I like having those gaps of long amounts of time in adventures, as long as it makes sense for the story. So I try to do that a good bit as well, give people a chance to bed down and build a relationship, and they have a home base, and they, then you can subvert them, and suddenly their best friend turns out to be a lizard person or whatever.
And what's wrong with that? I guess in a way, the broad answer to that is everything we've done professionally is informed by things we've seen other people do that we didn't like. And it doesn't mean that we don't like the whole thing.
What about stealing ideas, though?
Yeah,
that's really important.
That's what I'm saying. So here's D&D, right? I mean, back in the day, it spawned hundreds of other systems because there's something about D&D that individual people didn't like, and they wanted something very similar, could steal a lot of good stuff, but change that one thing, and that's a new system.
Evie, you're about to say something.
I know I'm like repeating myself. I think I said about this earlier, but just one mechanic from, I don't know if it's Honey Heist or The Witch is Dead, but just like the small fun things, so the table to roll for an accessory. It's like one tiny thing can make it so much more like customizable, and like every player is like, oh, I have a top hat, so now for new players, they can like associate things with top hats. They can be like, top hats, I'm posh. So they'll find it like, or like, oh, I don't know. So they'll find it more easy to role play as a character if they have something to like attach onto. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and stealing.
Yeah.
People like, oh, I love that mechanic. I'm like, I stole that.
Yeah, we call that research.
Influence, yeah.
All right. So go around, play some games this weekend. Look at other people's stuff. You see something that you really like, that's yours now.
I made this.
Yeah.
Right. Guys, I think we're just about done. Ladies and gentlemen, will you give a huge round of applause for our fantastic... They're all being around, I know. Lawrence is back for another talk later. Emmett's running a game downstairs.
I'll be in the pub later.
We're running a game.
The pub. Alex and Evie won't be in the pub. But you can definitely catch all of them knocking around. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm going to see you guys here as well at other points throughout the weekend. Enjoy the rest of it.
Cheers, folks.